You are listening to the Supermom is Getting Tired podcast. I'm your host, Tori Henderson, and this is episode 134. All links and show notes can be found by going to lifecoachingforparents.com/134. Welcome to the Supermom is Getting Tired podcast. This show is designed for moms who invest everything into parenting, but get overwhelmed, lost, and resentful. Listen and learn how to unburden yourself, feel calm, full of energy, and in control. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach, teacher, and recovering supermom, Tori Henderson. Hello, supermoms. Isn't it a beautiful day? I am officially an empty nester. Woohoo! I can't believe it. Oh my gosh. So many emotions. I am elated. I am sad. I am weirded out. Is that an emotion? I am feeling all the feels. And it's wonderful. I don't want you guys to be scared of this stage of life. It's just a very emotional stage, but feeling feelings is not bad. Like, we're wired to feel our emotions. You want to watch out for anxiety, worry, stress. That is just a cover of emotions, or even what I call like buffering with optimism, where you don't allow yourself to feel any of the kind of negative emotions because you only want to feel happy all the time. Watch out for those. But if you've got an empty nest coming up and you are not sure how you're going to handle it, it's okay. All you do is you let yourself feel all the feelings, and it is a wonderful thing. And you're with all these other mamas who are feeling all the feelings, and there's a lot of camaraderie and support just built into this stage of life. So it is awesome. It is exciting. It is weird. It is sad. It is strange. It is all the things. It is the full experience. Today's podcast episode is a really important one. It's about how this culture that we live in for super moms of go, 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 do, work, 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 how that can lead to chronic pain and fatigue. So today I have an interview with a fabulous coach. She's a former physical therapist, and now she works as a coach for helping women deal with chronic pain. And we're going to talk about how that develops, how this go, go, go culture is kind of toxic for us. And most importantly, we're going to talk about relaxation and how to get your nervous system calmed down. So at the end of the podcast, we are going to announce something we're going to do together on September 26th through the 30th. We're doing a relaxation challenge. So make sure you mark it in your calendar. You join the Supermom's Getting Tired Facebook group. It's an easy one to find. You go to facebook.com/groups/Supermom is Getting Tired and request to join, because we are going to be doing a little freebie every day in there where we're going to walk you through a relaxation technique that will help calm down your nervous system. And this is a hands-on. We're actually going to do it. We're going to get you relaxed, because I really created this podcast for people who say, I don't have time to relax. Relaxation takes I just talked about this the other day, too much time, too hard. It doesn't work. There's a resistance to relaxation and almost a fear of relaxation, a fear of being lazy, of not getting things done, a fear of work piling up. If you take a break, that there's going to be more work later. If you know anybody like that who is always on the go and struggles to really relax, or maybe you try to relax, but you can't quite shift gears, then this podcast is for you, because we're going to be talking about the physical pain and problems and ailments and illnesses that result from too much of this chronic go, 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 stressful living. So if you know anyone who has tension headaches, back pain, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, lupus, any kind of autoimmune problem, psoriasis, eczema, any skin problem, anything that could have a stress component to it, please invite them to join our relaxation challenge and have them listen to this podcast so that they understand the connection of the central nervous system and how it affects our health. And I look forward, join us, and I look forward to seeing you September 26th through 30th. Enjoy today's podcast. You are listening to the Supermom is Getting Tired podcast. I'm your host, Tori Henderson, and I have here with me today a special guest. I have Betsy Jensen from bodyandmindlifecoach.com. And she is here to help me answer a very common question or dilemma that I get from supermoms all the time who say, I don't have time to relax. So Betsy, welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Betsy Jensen. I'm a life coach. I help people with chronic pain and actually getting rid of chronic pain. It's amazing with the new neuroscience and with learning about the nervous system, what you can do with rewiring the brain. So I love talking about how the nervous system affects the body. And I got into this. I initially was a physical therapist. So I've always loved learning about the body and how it works. And working with people in pain, I've done that a lot. And I was a physical therapist for about 20 years and then started getting my own symptoms, some autoimmune stuff, ulcerative colitis. And someone told me that that was psychosomatic. And so I was actually excited. I was like, yes, I was a psychologist. Yeah, I was a psychologist.
Wait a second. Major. You were excited when they told you it was, because I remember I had vulvodoynia, which is a mind-body syndrome thing when I was like 21, and they told me it was psychosomatic, and I was pissed.
That's probably the more common reaction that I hear. But I think by that time I was already into coaching. I had learned about life coaching, not about the specifics about how it relates to our body, but how it affects every other area of our life. So I already had a big belief that our thoughts affected our reality. And then I was a psychology major in college. So I've always loved the mind and body. So when I heard that there was, a chance that I could solve this with changing my thoughts, with feeling better emotionally, and that could change my body, I was super excited. So I just jumped right in. I got into Dr. Sarno. He's an older practitioner of all of this. And some of his stuff is not as relevant now, but I just was like into all of that, Joe Dispenza, and I found out about The Secret, the law of attraction, all at the same time. So
so let's just pause there, because I'm going to have to add these links in the show notes. So Dr. Sarno was about End Your Back Pain Now, or something was the name of his.
Yeah, the one was Divided Mind. And I would actually say now there's a book that has been published within this last year. It was published in 2021 called The Way Out by Alan Gordon. And that has much more current research and explains the mind-body approach so simply and eloquently and easily.
Okay, and that's called The Way Out?
Yes, The Way Out by Alan Gordon.
Okay.
So Sarno has his place. Like I really love and respect him, but definitely it talks a little bit more about repressed emotions, and that can be harder to understand and access when you're like, I don't really feel angry, but my back hurts. But
right.
The Way Out really teaches how when your nervous system is dysregulated for longer periods of time, those signals just get messed up. And we know that the pain signals actually originate from our brain. And so just because we have a pain signal, it doesn't mean the tissue is damaged in that area. It means our brain has turned on that pathway to send pain there. And when we get really, when our nervous system is dysregulated, those pathways can turn on and we can feel the back pain, but not because there's damage, just because, we're stressed.
Yeah, I had a lot of back pain in my 20s too. I like to say I have a magic body.
Yes.
My body's always communicating with me and telling me when I'm on track or off track and of my life, Totally. And I didn't have that perspective in my 20s. I was going to doctors and physical therapists, and they just kept saying, like, we can't figure out why you have so much pain at such a young age. Like, your back's so healthy. And it was really difficult. And so I think it was heel back pain now. And I'm trying to remember Sarno's book, but
yeah,
it took me a while to discover the mind body connection.
Yeah.
And how it works. Because I think that first doctor who said it's like all in your head, he didn't say that, but it was basically, that's how I interpreted it. Right. Was that, he said, I think they said, we think this is stress related.
Yes.
And I was ready to punch. So I was like, maybe I do have some suppressed emotions if I want to punch a doctor for telling me I'm stressed. I remember being in the doctor's office saying, the only thing stressing me out is you telling me I'm stressed.
Right. Honestly. Yeah. Well, that really happens. And that's why chronic pain is so different than acute pain. Acute pain is like you pull a muscle and it hurts for a few days. But when it becomes chronic and you keep treating it the same way, we know that the neural pathways actually start to form more pain, because what you think about, you create more of. And usually when people start getting more and more chronic pain, it really limits their life in every way. So they're thinking about pain a lot, or they're thinking about the limitations they have. And then more and more of that shows up.
So Betsy, you're talking all about chronic pain and how the body can sometimes manifest pain coming from stored emotions or past trauma or whatever. How does that relate to a mom's problem saying, I don't have time to relax? And this is the other thing I hear all the time is, if I take a break, then more work will pile up. And so I can't afford to stop, because then it just creates a backlog. So how does your work in dealing with chronic pain impact or relate to those two situations?
Yeah. And actually, real quick first, what we also know is maybe it's not just like a chronic neck or back pain or vulvodynia, but even things like IBS, irritable bowel.
I had that too.
Of digestive things. A lot of digestive things or headaches, that kind of stuff can go on when our body is stressed out and at maximum capacity all of the time. So basically, I like to explain it thinking of the nervous system. So our nervous system can be in survival mode, or it can be in a calm rest and repair mode. And when our nervous system is in survival mode, that's that urgency that you're feeling, right? When you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to do all these things on my list. There's too much to do. I can't slow down. That just feels like, a little anxious to me. Like my heart races a little when I think
it's the hamster on the wheel. It's go.
Yes.
So tell us how the nervous system impacts one's ability to rest and relax.
Our nervous system is meant to have this fight or flight. Like we want to have it. It's not like we don't want to go into fight or flight, because that can help us if we're really like running from a tiger in survival. But what we tend to do as humans is we use our massive prefrontal cortex to keep us in survival mode all the time. We're not just taking into consideration what's happening in the moment, but we're thinking of the past and we're thinking of the future. So we're constantly in survival mode, which is actually very depleting to our body. If you think of sprinting at full speed versus, sometimes walking and sometimes resting and sometimes sprinting, you can just see if you're sprinting, and like that hamster wheel is a great analogy, because it's not like we're getting somewhere and then resting. When we're in chronic survival mode, we're just going, and usually feeling even more behind. And then what can happen if the system is very overwhelmed is just complete shutdown. And that's called freeze. And freeze is where it's like feigning death. You're almost like conserving your resources and conserving your energy. There's lots of fatigue. It feels like, you could die at any moment. So you just have to hide in a hole and just try to survive. And that's that feeling of overwhelm that some people might relate to, where they're like, I used to be this person who could just go forever, and now I can't even do anything. And that can be really disturbing when you're used to getting a lot of things done.
I have talked to quite a few supermoms who were go for years, like super hyper productive. And then they just get into probably this freeze state, right? Where their nervous system kind of shuts down. And then they're like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I do what I used to do?
Yeah.
Thinking that state of fight or flight is kind of the golden standard.
Yes.
Of like, if I was a good mom, I would be running around like a crazy person.
Yeah. We idealize that. And then we vilify, freeze as like, oh my gosh, I must be so lazy. But really, our nervous system chooses this for us. We're not thinking like, okay, I really want to not get out of bed at all today. But when your nervous system is so overwhelmed, it's like we're shutting down. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's where people usually find me, is because their body shows it. They have fatigue, or they have brain fog, or they have, all of these things they think are maybe other conditions like mold or allergies or all these things. But really, their body, maybe they are more sensitive to those things because their body is in this stressed out state, using its resources to barely hold on to survive. And sometimes then people will bounce between the overwhelm and fight or flight. So they're kind of like periods of time where they just can't do anything, and then periods of time where they're running like a chicken with their head cut off. But all of it is still in that survival state.
Right.
Which affects your body.
And we're talking about moms today.
Yeah.
And because it obviously happens a lot to moms, because there's a lot of demands in our culture placed upon moms, a lot on their shoulders, a lot of burdens. But this happened to my child.
Oh, yeah.
My kid developed adrenal fatigue, or whatever you want to call it, just total nervous system breakdown. He's had sensory motor integration, like since he was born. He always was hypersensitive to sounds, textures, tastes, that kind of stuff. And then he got a brain injury, concussion at age 11. We didn't know it, unfortunately. That would have been helpful. But so it was interesting to watch, just like you're describing this, like between fight or flight and freeze, is he would play the most amazing soccer game of his life. Like he was on fire, and then couldn't get out of bed for 3 days afterwards.
Amazing. Yeah, like exactly.
Total dysregulation of the nervous system. Yes. So I just want to throw that out there in case, anybody else is seeing this in their kids or their family members or a loved one, where it's like, why can you be so like on fire 1 minute and then completely flatline the next? Yes. And it can happen to marathon run people who train for a marathon, and then they finish the marathon and then they just plummet and their energy really can drop. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. And I love that you say that too, because sometimes I'm a mom, and sometimes as parents, we want to blame ourselves if our child has a sensitive nervous system, or if they, exhibit some of these things. But it doesn't mean that you have like caused trauma in them, that they have a sensitive nervous system. Like some children are just born more sensitive. And again, like you mentioned before, I think those are the people that do have magic bodies. They do have more empathy, more connection to their emotions and to potentially their bodies if they use this skill right. Mm-hmm. So the sensitive nervous system is not like, oh my gosh, now you just have to live in a bubble, you'll never function. Like you have actually special gifts and talents, but you just also want to be mindful of protecting and taking care of your nervous system the very best way. And that's why getting into that parasympathetic calm state, although it's so contrary to our society right now, because we're very much like action-oriented, go and do a bunch of things in order to get better. In order to fix things, you need to like be constantly moving. So it's like so resistant sometimes to actually rest. But just seeing that, just like we turn off our phone sometimes when it gets really glitchy or we need to plug it in, like our body needs this state to just have some calm time as well. It's a time for our cells to rest and repair and heal. It's a time for our digestion to work. It's where our reproductive system starts working better. So although it seems counterintuitive to get off the hamster wheel and rest, the benefits are tenfold, maybe 100-fold as to what you can actually get done in your life and how you want to show up, if that makes sense.
What are some common signs that you see of moms who are pushing it too far, that they're spending too much of their day in this state of fight or flight, like running from thing to thing? Because there's a lot of just like, there's certain ages of kids, stages of life, right? When they're little, there's a lot of sitting around. But then when they're like, 11 to 15, there's a lot of driving around. And so there's kind of certain stages of life that, so let's say you got a mom who's got 3 kids that are 11, 13, and 15, and she's just going from thing to thing, constantly packing lunches, unpacking smelly sports gear, trying to not be late for practice. What are some signs that she's spending too much of her time in the fight or flight state? How would she know?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones, because this is such a good question, because sometimes when you're in fight or flight so long, you're like, this is normal. Like, this is my normal life. And then when it isn't as stressful, you're almost like, where's the action, right? Let's figure out a crisis so I can be at my top adrenaline level, cortisol all the way.
You get kind of hooked on the adrenaline.
Yes. So that's kind of one sign, is just like this intensity that when things quiet down, you're like looking for things.
Restless.
Restless. And I see it a lot at night when people lay down to go to sleep, and it's like their mind can't shut off. Their body is still, maybe they even feel tired, but something inside them is still in that survival state. Like, keep going, keep going. So I see it a lot at night. First thing in the morning, people wake up and they're, already have a lot of anxiety or terror about the day. And then I think, obviously I see it when it shows up in their body in varieties of ways, like all of the ways you could possibly imagine, from, knee pain to abdominal bloating, like actual reflux, like it can physically show up in your body. But I would just say it's that state of kind of like, you're never good enough. Things are never done. There's always more to do. It's unworthiness. And there's this like urgency about it. It feels very different than, I like to have my clients try to imagine a time where they really did feel that parasympathetic calm state, because maybe they haven't felt it for a while, or it's so fleeting, or it's even uncomfortable, right? Because they're like, what is this? This feels awkward and unsafe, right? To really relax.
Sometimes I'll give like a homework assignment to, for my clients, I give them little homework assignments in between calls to kind of practice what we're working on. And sometimes I'll give the homework assignment is to sit in the sunshine for 5 minutes a day.
I love that.
For people who have resistance, or they think, oh my God, like anxiety starts to develop around doing nothing, right?
Yes,
that like
exactly.
getting off the wheel and feels scary. So it's just like it's kind of like when during COVID, when we were social isolating, and all of a sudden you're like going into a big group again. You're like, is this safe? Like nobody's wearing masks. And you start to feel like you start to develop anxiety and fear around something that's normal and used to be normal. Exactly. So it sounds like the signs of that someone's spending too much time in fight or flight. One is chronic pain that happens after a period of time, usually. 2 is restlessness at night or anxiety in the morning. And another one that I would add in is just this state of being tired but wired. Which is kind of what you're describing, but where you're just like, I'm tired, but I can't relax. I'm trying to relax, but it's not working. I don't feel restful. Even when I'm I remember going to get massages, and I'm laying on the massage table, and the whole time I'm just like talking, or I'm like start life coaching my massage therapist, or and she kept saying like, take a deep breath in, and I'm like, I am, and she's like, no, you're not. I'm like, no, I am, and she's like, your muscles aren't relaxing, and there's like this, like even when I'm trying to relax, my body wasn't, because this is the thing, right? I want to reiterate what you said. The central nervous system decides for you what it's going to do. You don't get to choose, I'm going to go into freeze, fight, flight, play, rest, digest. It's not, you don't get that. Okay. The only part of the central nervous system you have control over is your breathing. That's it. Everything else, it can hijack all your decision making, your conscious awareness. Like, I want to relax. I'm getting a massage. And your nervous system is like, sorry, no.
It's true. And your nervous system, I always tell people, your nervous system was formed when you were a child. So it's about the level of an elementary schooler as far as, fears and emotional maturity, right? Like it's
a primitive part of our brain.
Yes. It's going to err on the side of like run and hide or fight if, at the slightest danger. But this is not to say if you had a rough childhood or you're one of those sensitive people that you're doomed for a life of constant triggering and never being able to control anything, because there really are a lot of strategies you can use once your nervous system is dysregulated. That's the part you don't have control over. But then from there, the way that you react can either keep you spinning in fight or flight or bring you back to that calm state, with intention. And then that actually processes some of that old trauma that you might have had as a child, the reason this got reactivated.
And I just want to add too, because I had a very stable childhood. I would call it.
Yeah.
And so
like low ACEs scores.
And I hear this like trauma as a childhood. I'm like, I did not have trauma. Like, I think of trauma as being like homeless on the street, abandoned, like, physical abuse, whatever. I had none of that. And so for me, like hearing like childhood trauma was so triggering.
Yes.
Because it wasn't helpful.
Yes.
Because of my definition of trauma. And so what I've learned throughout the years and through, life coaching and getting into that mind-body connection is that like anything could be trauma. Like, witness a car accident. And that could be a trauma in the body that I never talked about, or I saw somebody get hurt, fall off their bike. I mean, it could be the smallest little thing. Yeah. The point is just that I had, and I'm sure there's others out there, have a tendency to tense up rather than release those emotions. I held on to them and like, I'm just going to keep them inside because I didn't know how to process the emotions in a healthy way, release the stored up energy. Yes. If you don't like the word trauma, think of it as just stored emotions or stored energy in the body. It's just like, I remember like I had to learn how to have TMJ too, another like stress thing, right?
Yes.
And I was trying to unlearn how to clench my jaw at night. Mm-hmm. And my brother-in-law was like, well, if you're clenching at night, he's like, you're probably doing it in the daytime too. Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm sure that's not true. But once I started becoming aware, I was like, sure enough, like I was holding tension in my body when the sun was too bright. Yeah. When I was concentrating, when I touched my baby's skin and it was super soft and I didn't want to squeeze them too hard because they're so cute, or like a dog, I would tense my jaw. I would hold tension in my body. So for me, the word trauma was
I'm so glad you said that.
When it had to do with like petting the dog.
Yeah. And I love the definition of trauma as just more than what your nervous system can handle at the time. So,
that would have been very
right. Because like, that's why like, a horse running really fast could be traumatic to one child. And then to another child, they're like smiling and laughing or whatever. But it's your own personal nervous system at that moment in time. Could you handle what that event was, or was it processed? Because we even know very traumatic things that are processed with someone won't store as if it was even a minor thing that was ignored and never dealt with.
Okay, good stuff. So what would you say to a mom who says like, I don't have time to relax, or when I try to relax, it's not relaxing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it does go back to thoughts. So it made it maybe seem like, oh my gosh, this nervous system is just in control of everything. But we also know as life coaches that there can be some subconscious thoughts or even conscious thoughts that are kind of generating that anxiety in the nervous system about certain things, right? Like if we believe that our kids have to act perfectly in order for us to be a good parent, then we see our kid acting a way we don't like. That's causing stress to us because of our thoughts. And that can activate our nervous system in a certain way, and we can unpack that, right? We can see what is going on. So for each person, it may be different as far as what is exactly activating in their nervous system, for someone who...
For example, I'll give you my example. So I had a lot of fears around water. And I think my mom was scared of water. And so I just picked that up as a kid, right? Just absorbed this is something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
And so when of course we ended up with the house, the pool, which I did not want, but it's like the universe wanted me to overcome this fear because my husband loves boats and water and pools and everything. I'm like, So I had to work on this thing. I couldn't just avoid it. And so every time, I had this belief, this thought that it's my job to make sure every child is safe around water. And so my pool, that was fine. I would be on duty. Your kid, if they came over to swim, they would be safe in my pool because I was high alert. Now that's stressful for me, but that was coming from the thought, it's my responsibility to make sure everyone's safe. But I would do that at hotel resort pools. I would do that at water slide parks. I would do it in lakes. I would watch everyone's child.
Yes.
Have saved a couple of kids from drowning, which is just gave me more evidence to prove that I'm the only one who can make sure everybody's safe. And then after doing all of my work, I remember going to the waterside park locally here in my area. And I remember sitting down in a lounge chair and going, there's nothing I have to do right now.
Yes.
Oh my God, it worked. I'm finally relaxed around water. And it was all coming from the thought, but it took time to shift from it's my responsibility to keep everybody alive to there's nothing I have to do while I'm at a water slide park. That was heaven, but it is a thought. And it's just this process that life coaches learn about how to walk you through dissolving those beliefs.
Yes, exactly. So there are techniques, of course, of calming the nervous system, like you said, with breathing. And there's hundreds of different somatic techniques you can use, tapping and humming. And those are called bottom up or somatic approaches. And then the cognitive or kind of top down approaches, like the life coaching. Sometimes there's a mix, but the thing that's beautiful and unique about each of us is we can use our own nervous system and our own feedback to know if these thoughts are working for us or not, or if these, techniques are working for us or not. So we have some real-time feedback. We just stay in contact with our nervous system and not freaking out when it's dysregulated, but just being aware, just like we do with our thoughts, and then massaging them to, what feels more comfortable.
And on that note, Betsy and I are going to do something in the end of September. We're calling the 5-day relaxation challenge for all of you mamas out there who are challenged to relax or have difficulty relaxing or not. And you just want to just drop in and learn some new, quick, easy techniques that will calm down your nervous system and shift you into that play, rest, and digest state where you feel engaging socially with your kids. Because that's another place I would say it shows up is when kids ask mama, hey, can you play with me?
Yes.
No.
Oh my gosh.
I can't. I don't have the capacity to play because my nervous system's in fight or flight. Do you see the kitchen is so messy? I got so much to do. I got to do, and I'm on the hamster wheel. Play is unavailable to me at this moment in time.
Yes, it's so true. And it's so amazing to read in the neuroscience when they talk about the calm state of the digestive system or of the nervous system. The digestive system loves the calm state, of course, but actually when you talk about the effects in the mind and the brain, that is where you're the most creative. It's your learning mode. So where you can actually receive and absorb information. and it's where you're the most connected with people. You actually produce more oxytocin. So you're actually more able to connect with people, and you're more able to see the big picture without the black and white thinking. So sometimes when we think of, oh my gosh, I just don't have time to get to this rest and repair state, this calm state, first of all, it doesn't mean you're just laying there doing nothing. You could be playing. Like, that is calm to the nervous system.
Walking.
Yes, you could be dancing,
folding laundry,
laughing. You could be even, have you ever really been in flow when you're working and it feels like the work is just, like ideas just flow into you and time passes so quickly and you're almost more energized after you work than before? That is that parasympathetic calm state. It can be active. So don't fear that you're just becoming a lazy couch potato if you ever start to get calm. But secondly, this is where you're going to actually show up as the best version of yourself, the person who, you might have had a lot of creative ideas before you had kids. And now you're like, I don't even feel creative anymore. I don't even know what I like anymore. It's
the first thing to go. Creativity goes right out the window. I noticed that when the kids were little, every time my husband would leave town, I was like, creative problem solving. Like, the kid won't get out of the car and it's 100 degrees or whatever. Like, so many tips on how to do that. Like, I know intellectually, but it just disappears when you're in this state of fight or flight and you're stressed out and you're like, I can't remember all my good parenting.
Yeah.
And I can't figure out why they're acting this way. Like, your ability to connect, your ability to creatively problem solve, your ability to learn or remember the things you've learned.
Yeah.
All goes out the window when you're in that state of fight or flight.
It's so true. And that's why I think learning about the nervous system has helped me have so much more compassion with myself, because I was always like, why do I understand these things and I just can't do them?
Right.
And it's not because, like you said, it's because in those moments, you're not even thinking with your prefrontal cortex. So you're not remembering all those strategies that are great that you learned. You're in survival, reactive mode. When you can identify it, then you have more compassion. This is just, what I did. And next time I'm maybe going to try it differently. It doesn't mean you're always going to repeat it the same way. This is information for you each time it comes up. And that's why I think it's great, is because you don't have to go trying to search out everything that was a problem in your thinking before and all the, traumas or whatever, capital T or little t traumas, whatever. Just when they come up and you feel dysregulated, you regulate. And over time, that takes care of all of those old ideas and thoughts that need to be weeded out.
Yes. I love it. I love it. And so, it's just paying attention to, do I feel dysregulated? And your signs that your nervous system is a little high strung are that, like, tired but wired, restless, inability to, like, not sleeping well at night, or difficulty calming down, difficulty relaxing. It doesn't mean you have to be able to, like, get on the floor and play with your kid, like, for 8 hours a day. That's boring.
Yeah. Right.
Most adults don't like playing trains for, 8 hours a day. But that you can when you want to, and that you have the ability to shift into, like, even if it's just your kind of play, right? You're not needing a glass of wine in order to relax, that you can regulate your nervous system so that you can step into play when you want to, and not, and then be productive, but still from this relaxed state. Like you said, you don't have to just sit there. It's not meditating on the mountaintop we're talking about.
Yeah.
But there are techniques, and that's what we're going to teach in our 5-day relaxation challenge.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited.
And we're going to do top down. We're going to do bottom up, like you said, like starting with the body.
Exactly.
So that you can find one that works for you, or like your favorite way to relax. There's so many different techniques, and, some might be a certain breathing technique. We might be listening to things, looking at things, so we're going to just walk you through so that 10 minutes a day you get to relax.
Yes. And really, things can shift even with just 10 minutes a day. Those gratitude journals where they've shown, people's brains actually change and they become more satisfied with their lives by just writing down 3 things a day. It's the same with this work with the nervous system. Just 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, or just a few times of 30 seconds, just any little things. It's just like I said, when we turn off our phone and give it a 3-second break, sometimes that's all it needs. So we tend to go really like black or white sometimes, like, okay, well, I don't have 3 hours to relax, but
this is going to take a long time.
Yeah. But they call it even micro relaxation. So I love that idea of just having like 2 breaths that you take. So like a micro relaxation in your day.
So if you feel like you want that summer vacation mode and bring it into the school year with you so that you can continue that relaxation and not just feel like, okay, school's here, I got to be stressed now, then we will help you do that. So the challenge is going to take place inside the Supermom is Getting Tired Facebook group. And on Betsy's Instagram page, we decided we'll do it on there too. So if you're not a member, you can go sign up for the Supermom is Getting Tired Facebook group. And if you're not a Facebooker, then you can sign up to get on my newsletter list. If you go to lifecoachingforparents.com/10Q, you can get on so that you'll get the emails. And so you can join it there. And so, it's going to be at the end of September 24th, right? 24th through
the 26th through the 30th?
26th through the last week of September.
Yes.
We can all join in together and then get some collective relaxation going on.
Yes.
And I love how you said that it started to give you, like, it helped you be more compassionate towards yourself, because compassion is also a way to help calm down the nervous system.
Yes.
The lack of compassion usually is one of the triggers for that.
It really is. I know it is. And I think the people who are the most sweet and well-meaning and kind and giving and generous are most at risk for this. So it really does. I'm sure it's, a lot of moms and people who we're pretty much trained to give at our own expense, and that, this is how we should be. We should
sacrifice ourselves.
Yeah. Everyone's needs before ours.
Prioritize kids.
Yeah. So even just noticing if you're feeling that way, this kind of self-focus will really help get you back into that alignment with how you really want to show up, versus running around like the chicken with its head cut off, or just laying in bed with the covers over your head, just not even able to face anything.
Right. So if anyone who's feeling like they kind of lost themselves through motherhood, this would be a really good program for you, because it's tuning back in towards yourself. And I like the idea too of you said it helped you learn compassion, which for sure is got to be a part of this, but it also helps us be compassionate towards our kids and being able to identify when their nervous systems might be increasing to the point of tipping the scales, or it's healthy. Like if you've got a kid who's one of those, I'll say a hyper performer, takes school really seriously, stays up till 2 a.m. studying, needs to get, straight A's and takes all these APs, like it might help give you some ideas of how to help one of your kids who might be high strung or always kind of go, really perfectionistic, puts a lot of pressure on themselves. Yes. Please come to this challenge, because then you can learn how to role model that relaxation for your kid.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that, because with attachment theory, when they're studying children growing up and how parents show up, they've actually shown that you only need to be like present and engaged with your child a third of the time. The other 2/3, like we mess up sometimes. We don't show up how we want. We yell or whatever. And that's totally okay, as long as we're going back to our children and saying, hey, how I yelled at you? I was really mad in that moment. And that's not how I like to show up. And even doing that, right? We don't have to be perfect. If we can just kind of show up how we want, even a third of the time, and then the other 2/3, we go back to our children as humans and we say, hey, this happened.
I'm not perfect
about it. Yeah. And
I think those other 2/3 of the time we're role modeling.
Exactly. That is Yeah,
the number one way
important.
kids learn is through imitation.
Yeah.
So if we can calm down our nervous system, regulate, help kind of identify when we're out of balance and bring ourselves back in, then our kids are watching us do that and learning like, oh, okay, I'm going to take some deep breaths now. I'm going to go take a 10-minute rest and, go into my room and lay down and take a nap, or I'm feeling a little wound up, so I'm going to go for a walk around the block. And like, they're watching us and learning that there is ways to cope and you don't have to just stay on the wheel, giving, doing. And that it's important to take care of ourselves. And so we want our kids to learn that skill.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Betsy, for being on the podcast today. It was really good to have you.
My pleasure.
Forward to seeing you and having everybody else join us for the relaxation challenge at the end of September.
Woohoo. Yeah.
Everybody get excited about getting calm.
Yeah. Right.
Want a free life coaching session? Go to lifecoachingforparents.com and schedule yours today. And thank you so much for listening. I would love it if you would subscribe and share these podcasts with your friends. If you have a question you'd like me to answer on the air, go to lifecoachingforparents.com/record-my-question, and you can send me a voicemail recording or write me an email, and I'll answer it on the air. Thanks again. Have a great day.